From what I can tell, he was quite a reserved person, quite shy. And I did have difficulty kind of tapping into what his character might be like, I suppose. They spoke about how kind he was, how he would never actually treat them as patients, always as people. That really comes through in the work that he did. He was desperate to help people and to save lives. And obviously we're still reaping the benefits of it now. Been here for the last 6 months working on a collection of poetry that relates to the work of Joseph Lister. The college has a huge heritage collection, which was the main focus of my research. I have been reading lots of Joseph Lister's notes, reading books that other people have written about him. I have been looking at all the really kind of gruesome instruments from the Victorian era, and then I started trying to piece together some poems from what I was looking at. Spent a lot of time walking around Glasgow trying to get a feel for the city. I've been up to the Royal Infirmary, been to Kelvin Grove Park where there's a huge statue of Lister. I went to the Hunterian Museum where they have a jar of Lister's urine, which he used to demonstrate his theory of antisepsis and kind of confirm that there were germs living in the air that could infect people's wounds if they got into them.
Glasgow itself was in a flux. The Industrial Revolution had changed the population. There was also a big influx of people from the peripheries, from the countryside into work in Glasgow, and the population rose quite significantly.
There was a lot of things wrong with hospitals, a lot of people were dying. You went there and you were kind of just expected to die rather than survive as you would today. And he realised that this was a big problem and that there was something going on with regards to wound treatment and surgical treatment. That it seemed to be after a surgery, people were dying.
They were quite unsanitary conditions. The hospital was built on top of an old cholera grave. He was quite anxious, and I think hostel managers were anxious at the time too about the conditions. In fact, some wards missed their annual clean at times, which was quite amusing to me when I see how the wards today are cleaned on a daily basis.
Sunlight spikes between the tenements, never enough to warm the bricks. Cobbles, forever slick with tossed out wash pots and clothes dripping from lines. Nothing quite dry, nothing quite white. Grey as a pencil smudge, grey as mould on fruit. Old closes and streets of Glasgow captured, the blurred figures in the background were neither asked for nor dismissed.
Before he published his first, paper on antisepsis, he gathered several cases to put into this paper as evidence. And the first case was a young boy. We know him by James G in the article. And he had an accident. He was trying to cross the road. And this cart actually knocked him down. And he had an open fracture in his leg.
At the time, infection was really common with those sort of injuries, and most patients either developed gangrene and needed amputation or perhaps died. And he used this dressing on this 11-year-old boy. In modern day terms, it didn't sound like a very big area of wound. It said it was described as 1.5 inches by just under an inch, so not that big a wound. However, you could probe down to the bone there.
And he tested this over a good few weeks. He changed the dressings and saw that there was no sepsis, there was no blood poisoning at all. And eventually the wound was completely healed and it wasn't infected. So this was his first case, and then he tested it with several other people with similar open fractures over time too.
So that was part of the presentation that he gave 150 years ago. So there were some people who were very enthusiastic, and then there were some other very eminent people who were not so enthusiastic about what he was saying. But I think mixed is the best way to say how people reacted to his work and his publication.
He was a lecturer at the time as well, so his principles were being taught in classrooms, and this kind of phase of Listerism, as they called it, was passed on to future surgeons. So a lot of the people that we've seen through the college have been students of Lister. So for example, William McEwen, the famous Glaswegian surgeon, he was very much a big fan of the antiseptic principle and practiced it in his surgeries and told other people to do it as well. Over time, once it was established after several years, a lot of people started putting it into practice, and it eventually led to the safe surgery that we know today.
The primary school project involves one of the local primary schools here. We are putting together a performance which will star Joseph Lister and the children, and we're going to put together a newspaper, and all of this is in aid of Listermania, which is happening in April, which will be the 150th anniversary of Joseph Lister's lecture here in the college.
Hello, my name is Joseph Lister. I was born 190 years ago in 1827. I know what you're thinking. I look very good for my age.
I was getting the kids to do a lot of drawing based on our museum collections here. So our medical instruments from history, like amputation sets and Lister's carbolic spray, getting them to, use their artistic talents to communicate the medical history through images. And also contributing to the play as well.
No.
What else do you need in a play?
Pictures.
Props, pictures,
Settings.
settings, costumes, okay? We're used to having medical professionals constantly in the college, and to have children and kids in it instead, it's really refreshing. Working with Marianne's been a total joy. We get on really well, same sense of humour. Especially with regards to medical history, because when you research medical history so much, it can get pretty dark.
Your notes are very matter-of-fact, laying out the details like a pack of cards, inviting me to pick one. But how can I choose just one when you describe a wound large enough to admit the tip of a finger, implying you tried? Wounds soaked with the acrid products of decomposition, aggregating like a Gruyere cheese, or scraped at with the edge of a knife. I can barely brush my own teeth without finding it all a little obscene.
Quite a blessing to see someone who's not from a medical background to enjoy medical history as much as I do, having been from a more medical background, and to see the importance of, the heritage of this college in medical history, and also Glasgow as well.
The poems that have come out of the experience are mixed. Some of them are based on Joseph Lister's cases, which I read about. Others are based on my own experiences of being here in Glasgow and of kind of trying to crack into the character of Joseph Lister. Some of them relate to this kind of poetic relationship that I've built with Joseph Lister. There are certain poems that deal with more serious topics, like patients who were helped by Joseph Lister. And then there are some others that are hopefully on the more jovial side, about me and the ghost of Joseph Lister kind of navigating together through this residency. He can't believe the foam of it, the audacious Renaissance wig holding shape across the mouth of the cup. "This is a cappuccino, Joe," I tell him. "I drink these to feel alive." Gingerly he takes a sip, his Greek nose dipping the glacial mass of milk, so that when he re-emerges, the tip is that of a ghostly clown. Can I say that we're friends now? Of course I can't. I can't claim to agree with his ideas on vivisection or women in the workplace, just as he cannot understand postmodernism. But I'd like to think that we've been charmed by one another. The years are like pus between us, the connection between living tissue and dead, multiplying faster than we care to admit. And haven't we both tried, in our own ways, in our own centuries, to find some way of saying, this is what life is, and it's pretty good.
There is a place for art in this field. It's been quite eye-opening, and really, I kind of just marvel at a lot of the stuff that's been created, like the art, the poetry, and to learn over time that these people that who were like surgeons in history, they were really artistic too. So it has been a challenge, and it's been pretty awesome to see that something as factual as medical history and heritage can actually influence something as beautiful as a poem.
Being part of a institution where an innovator such as Joseph Lister worked is clearly inspiring when you look at what work he did and what work he inspired over the last 150 years. It's amazing.